Welcome to the Franchise Woman podcast, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships forged. I'm Rebecca Monet, CEO and Chief Scientist at Zorco Profiles, along with my co host, community advocate, speaker, author, and entrepreneur, Tracy Kawa. Our very special guest today is Leah Doroch, founder and CEO of Perfect Care Match Company. Perfect Care Match is a full-service home care agency focused on a holistic approach, providing stress-free caregiving services with expertise in memory care and more. Perfect Care Match's unique assisted live-in home care program and traditional hourly caregiving services are customizable to meet the diverse needs of clients and, of course, their families. Leah has nearly 30 years of experience in providing holistic care to seniors. Some of her credentials: she's a board certified holistic health practitioner, a certified dementia practitioner, a certified stress management coach, a Harvard Medical School certified nutrition coach, and she's also certified in Ayurveda by Deepak Chopra. So, welcome to the show, Leah. We really appreciate you taking time for us.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, Leah, that's a lot of certifications that you
Yeah,
have. You certainly have
I
a lot of
know.
interests, and although they're diverse, they all somehow tie in. So, was there something initially that inspired your interest in healthcare and holistic and all of that?
Yes, absolutely. I was very affected at a young age by what happened with my grandfather. He had the condition known as Alzheimer's disease, and it was in the 80s, and it was a very difficult journey. He, was having those types of behaviors where he was making unsafe choices, leaving the stove on, putting my grandmother at risk, and that sort of thing. And then unfortunately, all of the adult children finally decided that they needed to do something for his safety and my grandmother's, and they put him in a nursing home. And that began a very traumatic experience. Back in the 80s, they didn't have the knowledge of what we do today about the brain and how the disease progresses. And, it was not the same experience as you receive today in the facilities or at home. There was no in-home care. And so it was very traumatic. He was bounced around from nursing home to nursing home because he would get agitated and have different behaviors. And, he did pass away restrained and heavily medicated. And it was just really, very difficult to understand. And it was traumatic. So it impacted me quite a lot, as you can hear. I then progressed to getting involved in my grandmother's care when she had a fall. Now, she was cognitively sound, and she had a fall about 6 years later. And it was after he passed. And, everyone was talking again, should we put her in a nursing home? But she was terrified because of what had happened. So I actually helped with my mother at 18 years old to care for her. And we brought her into my mom and father's home, and it was something that was going on for a number of years. Did we lose Tracy?
Yeah, she'll come back.
Okay.
So Leah, as you're describing this, you're a young woman. You're 18 years old, helping your mom take care of your grandmother. Tell me personally what that was like. Was it a sense of I'm contributing, this is bringing me great joy? Was it I got to figure out something different? Did you understand everything she was going through? I mean, at that point, you didn't have all these certifications. So
No.
tell me about, so meaning you didn't have the knowledge base yet to draw from. So for you
Right.
personally, how was that experience?
Well, my grandmother and I were very, very close always, and I was the youngest of like 20 grandchildren, and I'm named after her, Leah. So we had a special connection. And so I felt very honored, and I was the one who actually said, Mom, I'm going to help you with this. Nana had talked to me and she wants to stay home. And she really wanted to. And I would visit her every day. And so, it became the norm. And so we actually decided we were moving to another town, and we took her along with us, and I continued to care for her through college. My intention was to actually go get some big corporate job and, not be caring for the elderly, but somehow it all circled back to here. I was in technology for a while, in other types of businesses. And so, yes, I feel that it really is amazing when you look at your journey and how different aspects of it kind of ties back to a life purpose. And this is really where I'm at. I'm so appreciative I had that time with her, and it was a precious gift, I feel. My mother, she might have felt a little differently,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah. But like you said, you kind of finally discovered that this was your purpose. So maybe it wasn't your mom's purpose, but it was definitely your purpose. Was there a moment where you knew that, where you're going, this is my life
yes.
calling?
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, I worked in a lot of different industries, but technology, and I was working in New York City, and it was a lot of software engineers, and it was just not the same feeling. They're great people. They've got, important jobs, but I felt like it wasn't purposeful enough for me. Like I just wanted to do something that made a difference in people's lives and be of service. I was on my path to kind of discovering myself when this happened. And, it really was like an aha moment. A friend of mine who was working in an assisted living said, "Why don't you come here?" And she's an Alzheimer's expert. And she's like, "Why don't you come here? They're looking for, this position. Come in and see if you like it. It's a really great work." And it just changed my life, really.
Beautiful. Sorry, my Wi-Fi went out. So I'm just kind of catching up with the conversation here.
Talking
No
about
problem.
purpose and how Leah discovered her purpose by providing care for her grandmother. And then she went into a corporate environment, didn't have that same sense of satisfaction.
Ah,
I just find it interesting how young you were to
yeah.
discover your purpose. I don't think I figured it out till I was in my late 40s.
Great.
Right. Well, I was probably, 38 when I, really uncovered that this has got to happen for me. Something more is out there for me. And, it really was about helping others. That was my goal, is to help others through, and families, not just individuals, like just one sector. I felt like I could help the whole generational impact of it. So that's how I started to look at how I would, formulate my own business when I started moving towards that in 2019.
And speaking of families, Leah, how do you help families?
Yeah. So the company that I currently have, is an agency, a home care agency. So we service families. We service all of Massachusetts. We actually are moving into Rhode Island under the corporate level, and then also Maine. And then the rest, I'm looking for business partners to help with this mission. It's a true mission of helping as many families as we can, because as I'm sure you guys are aware, the population is really suffering over 85 with dementia. That's one of our main focuses, is memory care. So keeping someone safe at home it's critical. So that is a huge focus for us, is keeping people safe at home in general, if they're a fall risk or they have dementia or
Yeah.
some other condition, or, even if they're on hospice, we care for people from, many different stages of the aging process, but keeping them independent at home. And when we go into cases, we actually look at as I said, what are their support systems? Who's involved? And how are they feeling? Like you, Rebecca, asked, like, how are you feeling when, your
Mhm.
grandmother and I know it was extremely stressful for my mother and the other adult children, that were involved, my aunts and uncles. So I just, I can imagine that when we're going into a family, we're kind of becoming very intimate with this family. We're getting to know everything about them. So I try to make it as warm and caring and safe as I can for everybody involved. And, I do that through educational workshops, through my team is just amazing that handles all of the operations from case management through to placement and ongoing, uh, you know, keeping up with everything. And so what I am doing is working that model into a framework where it can be reproduced in, other sectors, other states. And I've done something very similar like this before. I did run a home care agency that covered all of New England. I helped them expand into all of New England before I started my company in 2020. And so I knew that it was a formula that would work. I just needed to put my own special interests into it, which involves a holistic aspect. A lot of education, a lot of support. We're working towards running retreats for families, such as if you're a spouse and you have a loved one, your husband or wife is suffering from dementia, there's no break. So I'm looking at doing, retreats where it's going to encompass some really great things like yoga and breath work and, for everybody. And I have taught a lot of seniors. I've taught, oh, it's over 500 seniors. I lost count after that, how to meditate and all
Oh
over New
my,
England. Yeah, I was on that mission for a long time and helping them get in touch with themselves at that age and a mind, body, spirit aspect. So that was really a really great journey. Like since 2014, I've been doing that.
So what puts you on that journey? You're a holistic health practitioner, you're a dementia practitioner, you got information certifications in nutrition, you're an instructor. Um, so tell me what puts you on that path, this whole holistic idea.
Yeah, so I really had an amazing experience that a lot of people like, oh, that must have been so awful. But to me, it was truly a great gift. I had a near-death experience. It was an accident where I was riding a horse, and she was a former racetrack horse that I had purchased. She was injured at the time, and she probably, if I didn't purchase her, she probably wouldn't, have made it through being healed. She would have been used for some other purpose. So it was a really intense, in, from the heart, trying to salvage this beautiful being and bring her back to where I always loved to ride horses. And so I did that. I had two little children at the time. They were just babies, my girls. But I was looking for a project. I wanted to feel a sense of my own. I had the two children and I just was like, I need something for me. So this was her. And my father was very involved with horses too. His love for horses is, equivalent to mine. And so we had trained her in a ring for a while, and we felt it was time to bring her out into an open space. And so we did that, and I hopped on her, and she decided she didn't want any part of it, and she reared up. And I had a rider's error. I pulled on the reins and we both went over backwards and she
oh,
landed on top of me.
oh
So
my.
like over 1,000 pounds landing on you has impacts. And so apparently like I stopped breathing and it stopped my heart. The impact stopped my heart. So my father, he had taken a CPR course about 30 years before at his former employer. He pulled that out of his brain somewhere and he actually began performing CPR on me and I came back. So it was pretty incredible. It changed my life. I feel that I am so gifted. I also had an experience through the healing process of, I was having post-traumatic stress and I was thinking my heart could stop any time. And I was standing in the pharmacy one day, they were giving me, it was the early 2000s, and they were giving me all these medications. And, I was standing in the pharmacy and I was not liking the medications. I felt like it was not me. I felt numb. And I looked at the counter and I saw this, this little sign, and it said there was money being collected for this family that had just lost their mother. And she had an accident with a horse where the horse reared up and fell over backwards on top of her, and she didn't make it.
Wow.
Oh my goodness. You are
Yes.
really blessed. Okay. I don't mean to dwell on your pain point, but I have got to ask you, when you were unconscious, did
Yes.
you have any near-death experience
Yes,
that you can
I
share?
did.
That you
I
can
will. Yeah. I love sharing this. I love giving people hope. And, one thing that I experienced is that there's something greater than what we see here. I was in a different state, of being, and I felt like I was just this light that was gathered up, by another being. And I just felt this sense of incredible love, like it was so intense, not of this earth. And it was like I was just in the sea of love, and something gathered me up and hugged me. And if you can imagine a hug, your favorite person in the whole world hugging you, the best hugger you've ever met, or like, being in your covers in your bed and feeling
Yeah.
so cozy and comfortable, and how you feel so good. Magnify that by, 10,000, and you probably
Oh,
couldn't hit what I felt. It was incredible. And so I really can associate it well, because the pain that I felt when I came back, I felt like I was being gathered up and put into the right side of my body, and I could feel myself experiencing that shift of pain from love. And it was just so intense.
that is incredible. I have chills from head to toe.
Yeah, well, I hope they're good ones.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
And then,
that shift from pure love and
yeah.
Yeah.
safety and pain-free to them being shoved back into your body
Yeah.
to experience excruciating pain is just crazy to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here's what I'm curious about. I mean, obviously there was post-traumatic stress that happened after that.
Yep.
How has that influenced
Mm.
your day-to-day life
Yeah.
and your business?
Yes, so everything is purposeful. Everything is about, what I can do to serve others while making use of this time on earth. You know, that I think we all have that job, and some of us forget it, and some of us don't, So it's just a matter of I'm very aware, and I'm trying to make use of every moment that I have to help others. And one thing, if I could add to my father, when I came to after that experience, he was actually crying, and he didn't realize I had come back. He was like, "She's gone, she's gone," and
Oh,
I was like,
Oh,
"Dad, I'm right here." I was
hello.
grabbing his arm, and I'm like, "I'm
oh,
here. What are you talking about?" So, it was pretty intense, incredible. And so when you go through something like that, and then you see all of these little signs, and I'm a great believer in, we're kind of guided, and we see these signs to encourage more. It just ingrained in me this thought process. Like I redid my whole life from there on out, and I really focused on how do I serve? How do I serve more? And what do I want to focus on? And I found my niche, I feel, from healing myself from, so much trauma, not only the trauma from this accident, but also the trauma that we had as a family, and my mother actually had dementia too, later on, in 2016, she passed away. So, it's something that I'm very passionate about, educating on how to promote wellness within our families, how to promote wellness for our seniors. A lot of people target the care of seniors as, okay, we just need to make sure she's babysat, mom's babysat, and that's not really it. So our whole premise is about purposeful engagement, ensuring good nutrition, and ensuring that movement is happening, that appropriate movement is happening to promote wellness, senior wellness. And like I think if everybody sees a role model here, that your grandfather or your grandmother, even if they do have dementia, they're still being treated in that way, that it kind of inspires that through the family, the family system.
Mhm.
I love that you found your purpose and that, you're also educating people. What advice would you give to someone to help them find their purpose?
Yeah, I know it's a big question because sometimes people are like, wow, you just knew it and you figured it out. And but I had to like die to get it, get the picture.
Literally,
There
literally,
was a lot that was involved with that.
much.
I couldn't walk for a week, so yeah. So I mean that's nothing in comparison to a lot of people. I mean, I think that we all have our own journeys here, and there's purpose in everything that we can do along the way. And I have other purposes as well. So it's like I don't know if you guys ever heard of A Course in Miracles, but just looking at that, the miracle of life is just it's always there. We just need to like see it. So I really feel that what lights you up, I think, we were talking about some several things that you guys have been, projects you've been involved in and how it lights you up. So I think that's it. I think whatever brings you that sense of self-love and vibrance within yourself.
Yeah, one of the things that we skirted around that I want to come back to is actually two things. One is when this traumatic thing happened with the horse, a horse that you loved, you adored, you had nursed back to health, and then you were injured, and then you went on all these crazy medications that just made you not yourself. At that point, you made a decision to try alternative ways of getting better psychologically and physically, and you're now carrying that and sharing that with families and the elders within those families. So you use many of these methodologies yourself. Was
Yes.
it like I already knew this and you just now adopted it, or what was that whole process of gathering that knowledge?
Yeah, so I mean, here's something that's a little different. Um, I actually didn't realize I was doing Reiki when I was like maybe 13 years old. And I grew up on a farm and we had like sheep that, my mother would raise sheep. She would um, lose a lot in the spring because, something was wrong with the baby. So they would just ignore it. The moms would ignore the sheep and they would pass. And I was sick of it. I was like, I'm not seeing another baby lamb die. So I took a lamb and that was sick and I brought him in and I was like just sitting with him and just praying and like asking I don't know who because I didn't really have a strong religious background in my family. So I just was doing that. And that baby lamb, my mother said, was the only baby that ever made it through like before, like it was like usually they would just, be ignored, neglected, or another mother would pick up with them. And if they were going to be healthy, they would. If not, they would pass. And this one lived with just us caring for it. And I felt like that was my healer, like coming out at 13. So, I think like just having that experience was important to me. But all of these things happening to me also made me seek more learning. And I just did. I went to workshops. I read about meditation. I did yoga. I learned about emotional freedom technique. And I was like, it was like a sponge. I was just like, give me more. What else can I learn? And then I weeded out what was really working for me and try to see how I could apply these applications to families and other people going through different difficult situations.
I love your story. I'm sitting here thinking about, like, I'm getting the visual of you with the baby sheep on your lap. And um,
Yeah.
I guess I'm wondering, like, do we all have that healer in us? Do
Yes.
only some people have it, and or you have to tap into it? Like, how does that work?
Well, I really think that, we all have it in some capacity. Some people might bring joy and light to somebody and, save somebody's life just by smiling and entering a room or, providing that nursing care or, just being a happy, funny person, and so it's just all in what your talent is, what comes out in you. And like I said initially, what brings you that light? Like, we all have that light within, and how do you get it brighter is my thought.
Yeah,
Yeah. Uh,
nice.
it's a beautiful way to describe it.
Yeah.
So the other thing you talked about, Leah, is your focus on the caregivers, especially
Mhm.
since there's a direction towards keeping our elders at home whenever possible. A good friend of mine was a primary caregiver for her mother, and I watched the stress and
Mm.
how it affected every area of her life, psychologically, physically, financially. The idea of a retreat where they can talk with others that are going through or get a reprieve of some nature so they can be re-energized, right? I think
Yeah.
it is a brilliant one. And I've not heard this before. So
Mhm.
tell us a little bit more about the future, and how you see what you're doing helping families, the caregivers that are involved in this.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that is so critical because 1 in 5 caregivers, family caregivers of folks with Alzheimer's specifically or other dementias, pass before that person with Alzheimer's. One
Oh.
in five, yeah. Um,
Wow.
Yes. So, I mean, if it's kind of like the stewardess says on the airplane, if you're not applying the mask to yourself first, then you're not going to be able to help anybody else. And so that's why I think, so many people with those statistics of 1 in 2 people over 85 have Alzheimer's. It's so critical that we look at that family caregiver because they're next. They could go first, and then what?
Right.
And it's a sad situation that is happening. And so that's why I really wanted to hone in and focus on and the family unit. And we do provide the care as sending somebody in to care specifically for the ADLs and the nourishment and laundry and all of those things. And it can be for both parties, husband, wife, that sort of thing. But I think there's more. There's so much more that we can do to support that other person in the mix. And they miss doctor's appointments. They're so focused on caring for that other person that they're not caring for themselves.
Mm.
So, that's why I really feel that it's critical and it's our responsibility as a home care agency to go in and actually work with that family unit. And it happens to adult children too. They go to bed at night and they can't sleep because they're so concerned about, well, is mom going to get up and have a fall? I'm not there. I'm a bad daughter. I'm like, should I be doing more? It's like a lot of questions and guilt, which I think a lot of us know now about cortisol and how that can course through our bodies, and this is inspiring more unhealthy for everyone. It inspires things like cancer and dementia within that population as well.
Scary stuff. Scary stuff. It thrills me that you're paying attention to this and you're educating, you're creating programs that address this, because I think that caregiver, that primary caregiver, is ignored. Uh,
Yeah,
and they're suffering right along with
yeah.
that individual they're caring for. Ladies, I
Yeah.
hate to do this, but we're coming close to the top of the hour. We could talk forever because one of the things you talked about is the baby boomers, and we're aging, and of course, our parents are aging. My father's 97 years old, so I know some of what you're talking about. Um, this is a big generation, and we're all getting at that place, or our parents are getting at that place. The need for the services that you provide has dramatically increased, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a
Wow.
great market to be in and feel that purposeful work. Like if you have it in you, it's a great marketplace to work with, a great demographic because you are serving, you are making a difference to others, and it's something you can get really excited about. And there's fun aspects too. Like I want to make it more fun for people. That's why I want, like, it's kind of a shift that I'm bringing in, a fresh new look for and aspect to the care, that it's not just about, okay, well, mom's being taken care of and that's it. No, we're going to come in, we're going to treat you with, like, with a lot of different things. We're going to show you how to eat better, how to nourish your, I mean, we have diabetic like numbers where we've never seen before, in the foods that people are eating. They just are affecting our health, and it's time for us to take power and control over this. So, that's something I'm trying to do, is empower families to understand that and work through that and make it fun too. Like you mentioned, the retreats are something. I used to hold retreats here. I have a property in Massachusetts, and we're near the ocean, and we're in the woods. We are surrounded by a 100-acre land preserve. So I would do a lot of retreats here and bring people in. And I thought, well, that's an aspect that came into my life. I haven't done it, since probably 2014. It's the last retreat I held, but I really want to do that. Like, and that's part of the franchise experience. Like, we're going to hold these events and help them, the franchisees that come on board, with branding, with these experiences, so they can help more families. And it'll move around. These retreats will move around to wherever the franchisees are. So, and they'll be using their team and their staff. And we treat our caregivers this way too. Like, we always are talking about self-care and ensuring that they are not burning out. We're giving them self-care remedies and that sort of thing as well, education on all of that.
So, Leah, on that note, if somebody wants to find out information on becoming part of this franchise experience, where can they contact you?
Yeah, I mean, the simplest thing to do is pick up the phone and call us. You can call our main line at 1-833-PC match. That's for Perfect Care Match. But the numbers are 1-833-726-2824. Visit our website and put an inquiry in through there, perfectcarematch.com. And email is fine too. You can email us at info@perfectcarematch.com.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Leah. This has really inspired me um, to think about what the future is like for my dad, those that I love that are years ahead of me, and my own life, and the burden that I might put on my children, and how I can be prepared for these things, and hopefully also prepare my children for these things. I love your heart.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I love you guys too, your
I
hearts.
love your I love your heart for people and animals. So so I've really enjoyed this conversation and really appreciate you being here today. So thank you so much, Leah.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me on. I really appreciate it as well. Thank you.
Tracy, I'm going to put it over to you, my bookmark,
Yeah.
my bookend.
I was thinking this whole time also that I love your heart, Leah. And at the same time, I'm thinking, like, I'm so sorry for the experience that you went through. And it is so unbelievably incredible how you were able to turn that into, oh, actually all of the experiences, right? A lot of experiences from your grandfather to your grandmother to the horse experience, but you were able to turn each and every one into a thought, a business, a learning, an experience, a certification that
I know.
will help people. I love how you embrace even the negatives in your life, and you just have a knack for turning lemons into lemonade. And I appreciate that about you. Thank you.
Yeah, I think
You're
that's
phenomenal.
that's the like the Viva, of like, it's just what we all have to kind of learn. And I learned, and it's not something, I did ruminate. I did have problems, with looking at situations and feeling bad. And then I said, why? Like I've retrained my thought process. Why
Yeah.
why waste time on it? We're here, we're here and now. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's a process.
Phenomenal. Really phenomenal. I've really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you
Me
so much
Thank
too.
you.
for being a guest.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, ladies. And thank you to our listeners today for tuning in. Make sure to comment, like, share Leah's interview for those you know will be inspired by it. And of course, we'll see you next week on another episode of the Franchise Woman Podcast, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships forged. We'll see you next week.